Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to bring you Healing Heroic Tomb Part 3, Heroic Kil'jaeden. Getting into it, this fight has two first phases, a first transition, a second transition, and then the final phase. Starting it off, for the first phase that you're really going to be seeing, you're starting off with Armageddon. These are a series of different patches on the ground that meteors are going to fall down into. Soak it. Get a dot on you. You're not going to be able to soak again until your dot falls off. If you miss a patch, you basically just nuke the raid with a super long-lasting dot that's just going to be taking tons and tons of healer mana and cooldowns to be able to heal through. So make sure you get people soaking it, getting stacked up right after for the Shadow Reflections. These are going to happen in the two first phases because they kind of mirror each other in terms of what's going on. The Shadow Reflections spawn 3 adds, and they start this long cast to deal tons and tons of damage to the group. Make sure everybody's stacked up so you can AoE them all down and get everybody healed up. Again, you can really stand wherever you like, as long as it's not in front of the boss. But there's really nothing that's going to be spawning mechanics into melee, for example. You kind of can just stand wherever. Get stacked up there. This is where you're going to rotate raid cooldowns for. And then right after that, you're going to be dealing with the Ruptured Singularities. Ruptured Singularities is basically the big purple ball that's going to fall from the middle of the room at first, and then it's going to go to a random corner later on in the fight. With the Rupturing Singularities, you just have to stand so that you're not going to be getting knocked off the platform. So if it's in the middle of the room, standing on one of the corners of it, you make sure you're not inside the inner circle there. Or if it spawns in one of the corners like it does in the first transition phase, you just want to run up close to it and not get knocked off the platform. Big thing here is the Focused Dreadflame. In the transition phase, it's going to target one person, and much like all the other mechanics in this instance, you need to split the damage. Less is more for this instance, because if you are standing in the path of it and you're helping soak, you can also cleave onto other people. So it's very, very important to make sure that you are not cleaving onto any of your allies. And usually what we did is we just had the healer group as well as a Shadow Priest or two or something like that, or any immobile DPS. They help us soak as well. Once you're leaving the transition phase here, again, everybody, this is usually when we lusted on the boss, you're going to be having just a repeat of all the other mechanics that we've been seeing so far. So again, you're going to be seeing the Shadow Reflections coming out. You are still going to be dealing with Armageddon. You are going to be having the Focused Dreadflame, and you're going to be having a different kind of Dreadflame, the Exploding Dreadflame. This Dreadflame is just going to be drawing a large circle around you. Just stand away from other people. It's going to be dealing a lot of damage, of course, to anybody nearby. So just make sure you're not cleaving on to anybody else, and you should be just fine there. Keep on splitting the damage from the Focused Dreadflame. And like I said, mostly for us, it was just the healer's job to split any of that sort of damage. First transition phase, the boss is kind of flying all over the place. It's a little bit difficult to do as disc, but I was able to kind of chase after the boss and keep on healing him. He takes 99% less damage, but that damage reduction does not extend towards atonement. So just because he's taking less damage, we're still doing the same amount of healing as a result. Damage taken and damage reductions on the boss in particular do not affect atonement. But if we were getting something like Schism, for example, that increased our damage on the target, then that would affect atonement there, right? So keep that in mind. The big thing before you're entering the second transition phase is that you want to be keeping people as topped off as you possibly can. The timing for when you push into this second phase is really, really important, because any kind of extra damage, you can have people who are taking ticking damage and are going to be unhealable for a good amount of time, maybe 5 or 6 seconds or something like that, which can be a very, very long time for how much damage is going to be going out on people. So definitely try to keep people as topped off before you're entering that phase. And of course, once you do enter the phase, the really important thing here is to be finding Illidan as fast as you possibly can. The room goes dark and you're only able to see a small radius around you. It's very, very important that you find Illidan as fast as possible. What we did is we just had people ping the minimap to show where Illidan was. Standing in his little pool there, you get a buff so you're able to see and you're able to heal people. Before you get the buff, you're not really able to heal anybody, and you're taking more and more ticking damage and a healing absorb, a negative healing absorb that you have to heal through. So definitely keep that in mind. There's going to be a ton of healing that's going to be required for this part. This is definitely a part where you're going to rotate through multiple raid cooldowns in order to get everybody topped off here. As Discipline, it's kind of fucky in the way that you have to make sure that you're targeting different adds and still dealing damage to them. So luckily for our group, I did have some DKs that were able to be gripping people. And I was able to kind of get a good range on that, and I was actually able to be getting quite a bit of damage out. But keep in mind, it can be a bit annoying otherwise. But once you're leaving that second transition phase, you're entering the final phase. He's going to have a Storm of 1,000 Souls, which is going to be dealing a lot of AoE raid damage to the whole entire group. You will be able to mitigate this damage a little bit later on, but for right now, that's where you want to be using Barrier. That's when where you want to use SLT, things like that, and again, another raid cooldown. So the later phase of this fight, the second transition, and right as you're entering the final phase, that's when you want to have a lot of CDs cycling on through. This last phase, you're not going to have Armageddon anymore, but you're going to be having a Flaming Orb. Generally, you're not going to really have to deal with this as a healer. We assigned mages to primarily be the ones taking care of this. You want to just push the orb into the Torn Rift. This rift is going to be just sucking everything in and sucking everybody else in. Ideally, you want to toss the orb in there. It'll get sucked in there eventually if you don't put it in there. So run it in there if you happen to be targeted by it. But like I said, more often than not, the healers aren't really going to be having anything to do with it. Make sure any bursting dread flames, of course, are being brought out. And keep fighting against the knockback here. It's really easy for people to kind of get picked off, either through any of the extra damage that's going on, or just getting hit by the pillars here. The pillars that are going to spawn are just going to be spawning in random locations kind of around the room, and each edge of it is going to be pulsing a very huge laser out on anybody that really gets near it. So you want to be diagonal to any of these pillars that are going to spawn, and make sure you're not going to get blasted, and make sure you're not going to get blasted outside of the platform here. The Darkness of 1,000 Souls, you can mitigate later on throughout this fight. You just have to kind of dip into the Tear Rift. Dip into it right before the damage goes out, and then make sure you're running out as fast as you can, as the Rift will be dealing lots of damage to you, and it'll be sucking you in faster and faster. Dip into the last second, avoid the damage from the Darkness, and then run back out and keep on dealing with the fight. From here, that's kind of all you have to be worrying about, is just dealing with those mechanics of avoiding Flaming Orbs, avoiding any of the pillars that are spawning, dipping into the Tear Rift when you have to avoid the big darkness, and of course dealing with any of the bursting dread flames that you might have to run out. So keep those in mind. In terms of healing for this last phase, it generally can be focused on a lot of spot damage, as people are getting hit by the pillars all the time. And generally speaking, you want to make sure that the second somebody is able to drop low, you top them off as quickly as you possibly can, because it's very, very easy for things to just kind of escalate or snowball on top of one person. That person gets picked off, and the further and further you're getting into this, the more it's going to be draining all your healers' mana, the resources, the more likely people are going to be messing up, because this fight will go to almost 10 minutes. 10 minutes is when you're going to be starting to hit the enrage. So the longer these fights go on, the lot more tedious it's going to be for people. So do whatever you can to keep your group stacked up. We had an issue, at least for me playing Holy, where our melee just kind of started getting obliterated, and we were running out of more and more melee. So my Sanctify, for example, is becoming less effective. Those are different things to kind of keep in mind: how effective your AoE abilities are, your ability to keep on moving and fighting against any of the suck-ins from the Tear Rifts, how quickly you can dip in and out of the Rift to avoid the Darkness of 1,000 Souls. All those things like that are very, very important. The positioning on this fight is probably the biggest factor that you're going to see. I've had many times where I'm able to kind of grip people, save them from getting knocked off the platform by gripping them before they're even knocked back, getting them into a more favorable position, and also a couple times where you're able to just grip them as they're falling off the platform. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. You do have a lot of room to adjust and help yourself, and also help the group by just having that extra awareness, that extra ability to see what everybody else is doing. So positioning is just extremely, extremely important on this fight. Thanks so much for watching this, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it insightful. Next videos, of course, are going to be on Mythic. I'm going to start up with the Mythic guys here very, very soon. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you want to check out any of my UI elements, any of that stuff, it's going to be in the description below. I know I'm going to get a ton of questions about that. All the links, all the weak auras, all the strings are going to be linked in the description below. Check it out. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.